Welcome back to another episode of the Paradigm Shift. Hope everybody's having a great day. We're a couple days behind, but we're here for you nonetheless. We got a double feature for you tomorrow. You'll have another one. So let's get this party started, guys. We try to make sure we do one every Sunday and every single Wednesday. I am Big Rob, and of course, I am back with my partner in crime, Jesse. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, what's happening, man? Glad to be back for another episode of the Paradigm Shift, where today we're going to be talking about police brutality.
Are you ready to offend some people?
I think we're going to offend all sides on this one.
Why don't you kick things off this time around, if you don't mind, my friend?
Yeah. So, obviously, I'm in the U.S., you're in Canada. I don't know if this is a U.S. specific issue with the cops kind of beating the crap out of people, or if it goes into multiple countries, or it depends on the government. Even in the US, though, I would say that I think the stuff that makes the news is sometimes taken out of context, sometimes not, right? And you see these videos that come out all the time, and it's like somebody in their car, all of a sudden the police officer just punches them right in the face. Or like where I live, sometimes they'll do big events, right? Like whether it's like a football game or some kind of big sporting event, and there's almost always videos that come out after the fact, and maybe it's just that everybody has a cell phone now, of the cops just beating the crap out of people. Like it's just kind of crazy. And one of the things that this may be a difference too with some of the US and some of Canada, and I've noticed this, where some of the neighborhoods that the police are in routinely, they almost get like jaded, right? Because everybody's there in there's like, F you cops, get the heck out of here. You're not welcome here, yada, yada, yada. And so when something does go down, like they're all like, everybody in the neighborhood's out there like antagonizing the cops, and it seems like just crazy stuff seems to happen. And so I figured, this whole topic is a very fascinating one to get into. And I don't know what it's like in Canada, so maybe you can kind of inform me.
It can be very, very polarizing. It is very similar in Canada as well. I think that it's universal in the West, probably because, I mean, for example, I've had friends who go through corrections. We'll use corrections just as an example. It's got to be a pretty close parallel to policing, right?
Yep.
And I've had friends who go through and they get jobs in corrections and stuff. And when they end up quitting or coming out of that job, they're just not the same anymore because of the stuff that you see, the stuff that you deal with, right? And you're not allowed to talk about it really. I'm sure that they allow you to go see therapists and stuff at the end. But at the end of the day, and I really want to explore both sides of this. I want to be clear about that. So I'm not making excuses or anything like that. But there is obviously, as we like to discuss, both sides of every coin, right? So the amount of stuff that the police have to deal with and see, I can imagine, is emotionally and mentally scarring for sure. And it definitely changes, I would imagine, how you would respond to things. And, you're probably pretty defensive, you're probably aggressive as time goes on, I would imagine, right? That's just human nature. However, there are a lot of assholes they give badges to at the same time who should not have them, right? I think the bar is just too low when it comes to qualifications for policing.
Hmm.
That is undeniably true in my opinion, and I think it's because let's be honest, there's a shortage of police, right? Nobody seems to want to really do the job except for assholes, right? People who want that bit of power over your average person, right? We could go through examples. I mean, I remember a time I was out. As you know, I'm in Manitoba. I was out in British Columbia, BC, and I had just moved there. This was years ago. This was when GPS. You remember the GPSs, the clunky ones, a little bit bigger than your cell phones. You'd put them up on your window or your dashboard.
Yeah, like the Garmin. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I had one of those, and I was coming up on this. I was on this street, and up ahead you could see there was like a police checkpoint or something. It was the middle of the afternoon, 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, broad daylight, whatever. And so we're bumper to bumper, slowing, inching and squinching our way. And then I get to the front and this cop waves me in to pull over, right? So I'm like, okay, whatever. And pull in, pull over. And he comes up to my window. And this is the funniest stuff I think I've ever seen. He's got the heaviest Australian accent you've ever heard, right?
Okay.
Clearly not born and raised in Canada,
Yeah.
right? Which, nothing wrong with that. But it's funny when it's paired with what he had to say to me, right? I roll my window down. He comes up, he leans in my window, and he points at the GPS that's on my dashboard, right? I'm completely hands free, and he goes, "What's that?" This is my worst Australian accent. What is that, sir? Right? Like it's GPS. Like what? It's telling me where to go. He's like, "You're a distracted driver." I'm like, no, it's hands free. I said, and it's stuck to my dashboard. He's there, and he just goes from like a 1 to like an 8, and he's yelling, "Sir, you are a distracted driver." I'm like, "Sir, why would they make and sell these things in the stores if I wasn't allowed to use them?" And but he just takes it from 1 to 10, screaming at me. I wasn't being a dick at all. I was just trying to
Yeah.
explain to him. I don't know if he didn't know what they were or what, but he kept accusing me of being a distracted driver. But I could tell that he wasn't 100% positive because he didn't end up giving me a ticket, right? I said to him, I said, okay, fine. If you want to argue with me, fine. I said, tell you what, give me the ticket. I will see you in court. And I want to see you argue to a judge in court when I'm fighting this ticket that a GPS system designed for drivers is a distracted driver when it's on your dashboard, hands free, not touching it, right? I
Yeah.
want to see the judge's face when you tell him that, right?
He wouldn't
And
show. There's no way
no,
he'd show to that. Yeah.
oh, absolutely not, right? He'd look it up and he'd go, "Oh yeah, no, I'm not going to that." Right? So he didn't give me a ticket, but it was just a principle that instead of asking me what it was, listening to my answer, and you know having an open mind about maybe something he didn't know about or whatever the case might have been, he just decided to go to like an 8 or a 9 and start screaming in my face, calling me a distracted driver. And it's like, how dare I say otherwise to him? And that's an ego that is out of control, right? I can't be wrong in this situation, right? So that's just one example. And I know it's not, he didn't physically abuse me or anything, but again, that's an example of people who should not have badges, right? You should be able to engage with the public in an adult, respectable manner. If you come up to someone, you don't know what something is, and you ask them, they give you a reasonable, logical explanation. You should be able to say at that point, "Oh, okay, have a good day." Right? You
Yeah.
don't need to start screaming in people's faces, threatening violence and threatening all this stuff. You don't need to do that, right? That's ego that's doing that. Um, what about you? You ever had any kind of a engagement like that?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking off the top of my head though of a couple of sports examples of this that happened recently. I don't know if you've heard of either one of these, but one of them involved Scotty Scheffler, who's like the number one player in all of golf, right? And this is a couple years ago, and he was trying to go. I think it was like the Masters or something like that, and he was running late, right? And of course, there's a checkpoint, and he kind of like puts down the window, like clearly it's Scotty Scheffler, and he sort of just kind of casually drives around them, and they're like, "Whoa, whoa," and they chase after him, like pull him out of the vehicle, tackle him, handcuff him, all this shit, and it's the number one golfer in the world trying to get to the tournament, you know, and it's like clearly somebody didn't get the memo on this thing when that happened. Wait a minute. Did I lose you? You there? Oh, I can't hear you. You're muted. Okay, wait a minute. You're back.
I'm here. I was muted. Did I freeze?
Yeah, you froze. Okay. Anyway, sorry. I'll keep telling that story. So Scheffler tries to go around the checkpoint, he clearly puts down the window is like, I'm Scotty Scheffler, the number one player in the world. And they're just like, no, and they went after him, tackled him, pulled him out of the vehicle, handcuffed him, took him to jail. Like he got a mug shot. And like on X, I follow the parody account for Shooter McGavin from Happy Gilmore. He's like, "Welcome to the club, Scotty." He's like posting one shot next to like John Daly and Shooter McGavin. So that was kind of a funny example of like the tuned up cop. I've also seen it where they do it's the tuned up cop racial example, right? Where I think the guy is he was like one of the star receivers for the Miami Dolphins, and he's again trying to get to the game, to play the game, and he's in his black Lambo or whatever, and they pull him over and they're like, "Get out of the vehicle." And he's like, "What?" Like, I'm just driving. And sure enough, they tackle him right into the street. They were taking you away, and so he's like, "What do I do?" And like, no one knows. So I think you have those. There's some of these examples where they're like tuned up and they're ready to go, but like you said, I think they get kind of jaded. And so like one of my best friends growing up, he's a corrections officer, yeah, just like you had mentioned, right? And I asked him at one point, I'm like, how's it going over there at the jail? He's like, well, I babysit assholes all day. I'm like, oh, okay, great. He's like, yeah, he's like, basically, they stay in line, we don't have any problems. They get out of line, yep, we're gonna have problems. And it's like, and you know what? I think their patience goes from like real wide to real thin. It's like razor thin. And you just give the slightest bit of back talk. And like you said, they go from like 1 to 10 in an instant, you know?
Yeah, there was another time I was driving in Ontario. I was driving back to Manitoba, and I was working for a dealership at the time. So I had, I don't know if they have them down there, but they're called dealer plates.
Yeah.
And yeah, for transporting vehicles, right? From when someone trades in a vehicle or whatever the case might be. When a dealership is transporting a vehicle, we use a dealer plate, right? So I had a dealer plate on the back of the truck that I was bringing back to Manitoba, and must have been about 10, 11 o'clock at night, and this OPP pulls me over, and it was this old cop and this young cop, this rookie, and I was like, I see what's happening here. It's training exercise, right? So the old cop, he comes over to my window and he asked me to get out of the truck. I get out of the truck, and he starts asking me, can we search the vehicle? Is there anything in the vehicle? I'm literally transporting a vehicle. There's like my little backpack and like some burger wrappers. That's it, right,
Yeah.
in the truck. And I'm like, yeah, go ahead, search the vehicle. I don't care, right? So they go through this search of the vehicle. It takes them, I don't know, 20 minutes or so, and I'm just standing at the back of the vehicle waiting and waiting. And the old guy comes up to me with the young guy, and he says, "You're lucky." I said, "I'm lucky for what?" He's like, "You're lucky you gave us permission. Otherwise, we would have brought the dogs here to search the truck." And I was like, "Okay, your dog would have found a hamburger,
Yeah.
right? Like, what's going on here, right?" He ends up giving me a ticket for a default defect on the vehicle, which was the dealer plate, because he didn't know what a Manitoba dealer plate was. So he gave me a ticket for it, and I tried to explain. He wouldn't listen. And then they towed the truck back to the closest town, which cost me about $400, right? Because it was late at night.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it wouldn't let me drive it because apparently the plate wasn't a valid plate, so they towed it. So I ride with the tow truck guy back to town, and the cop just takes off. And I told him, so he's like, "Where?" The tow truck guy's like, "Where do you want me to drop it?" I'm like, "Just at the Husky truck stop or whatever, right?" He's like, "Okay." He's like, "You're gonna drive it, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm gonna go into Husky. I'm gonna eat something, and then I'm gonna hop in the truck, and I'm just gonna GPS the dirt roads until I get past this jurisdiction, right? And that's what I did. And I ended up going to the closest town, the district, to fight the ticket. And this was funny. I go to court. Of course, the cop doesn't show up, right? And but at this point I'd never been to traffic court before. It's
Okay.
this tiny little courtroom. It's me, a judge, I'm a prosecutor, I guess. I don't know, somebody there representing the crown, whatever, right? And then there's me and like three people sitting there watching. And so there's like 5 or 6 people in the room total. And I go up to the stand, and the judge is like, "Where's your lawyer?" So I don't have a lawyer. He's like, "You have a lawyer for court?" I'm like, "It's traffic court. I was unaware I needed a lawyer, right? Like, what are we talking about here?" And because I had all the proof that it was a valid dealer plate. And the judge looks at me and goes, "So what do you plan to do here?" I looked at him, paused for a second, said, "Win?" I don't know.
That's where he calls the cops. Hey, bring him outside. Beat the shit out of this guy.
he actually starts laughing, right? And he's like, "Okay." He says, "Well," he said, "Officer so and so didn't show up anyways,
Of course.
so we're just gonna throw this out, right?" And but he got a hoot out of me saying, "Win?" I don't know. Like, that's my expectation here, right? But just
So
the fact I had to do all of that because this cop wanted to be an asshole, right?
yeah, yeah. So I was gonna say, I think you know, in a way they profiled you, right? So they didn't necessarily profile your race, but they profiled the dealer tag. And they
Yeah.
said, "Hey, we're going to make an example out of this one." You know what
I
I
was
mean?
younger too, so
Yeah. But I
yeah.
I think they do that a lot of times where it's like they do kind of profile certain things. And so I had a former boss of mine that he was a cop for like 8 years, right? And he used to tell us all of his old cop stories, and some of them were like hilarious. And like one of them was if you were anywhere like a Friday afternoon after 5, anything like that, if you spot a vehicle with a ladder on it, pull him over. He's got warrants. He's halfway drunk. And it was kind of like, he's got there's definitely drugs in the vehicle. Pull it over, and you got an easy one there. That's a slam dunk, because there's a ladder on it.
Well, there you go. Wow. Not driving around with a ladder on my truck after 6 p.m. anymore or whatever. Jeez.
Yeah,
It's true though, but the brutality side of it, right? Um, it's it's a complicated, polarizing topic because I would say that probably 60-40. 60% of the time, whenever you see a video of police brutality, what you see is the video starting about, you know, in a favoring the victim kind of thing, right?
yeah,
So they don't record what the person did to antagonize the situation. They start recording where the cop is throwing them on the ground and putting them in handcuffs, and then everybody loses their minds. And nobody has the logic in their mind at all to say, well, what led up to this? How did this happen? Because they would have you believe that the cop just walked up not knowing this person at all, decided to just grab him and pull a Macho Man Randy Savage on the dude, right?
right, right.
And that happens all the time. Every time I see one of these police brutality videos, it always starts there. It never gives you what it led up to it, right? This person's probably in the cop's face screaming. For all you know, he hit the cop first or she hit the cop first, whatever the case might be. I mean, I've seen videos, I think it was last year, there was like at least two I could think of where you had these angry, I think one was a black woman. She had a knife and she was trying to stab the cop in a hallway,
Wow.
and you could see it on his camera here that he carries on his chest, whatever the body cams, right? And she's got this knife and she's violently just swinging, trying to stab him, and eventually he shoots her,
Mm,
right? And suddenly he's a racist and police brutality and stuff. I'm sorry, man. I don't care. I got a family. I got kids. If you're coming at me like that with a knife, you're trying to do that to me. It's you or me, man. It's you every time. My son needs me, right?
right, right. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think there always seems to be an antagonist, and like we said, the cops already got a short fuse. So it doesn't take much to light it. And when you do that little tiny thing, that'll set them off. And like one of the new things today is like the cameras, right? Like how the police wear cameras now, but they didn't used to. And
Mhm.
kind of like going back to my boss that was a cop. When he was a cop, they didn't have the cameras, and they had all these lines like like two of us would be beating the shit out of somebody, and the third guy is saying stop resisting. you know like that's just like how it would work. It's like, yeah, we tuned this guy up over here. He kind of had it coming mouthed off at us. And I mean, you can kind of you can see how it's a real slippery slope. Like one of the funny things, where I live, the police are referred to as JSO, right? And at one point in time, I worked downtown in this downtown environment, and there's random homeless people that walk by and stuff. And there was some completely insane homeless guy that walked by us. We were, coming back from lunch or something. He goes, "Hey guys," and we're like, "Hey." he goes, "You know what JSO stands for?" And we go, and he goes, "Just shot one." Ha ha. And off he goes. We're like, "What?"
Okay, crazy man. Well, I think that I mean, there's, like I said before, there's two major problems when it comes to policing. One of them, as I said before, is the antagonists, the people who, let's face it, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your race is. People are just stupid sometimes. They say and do stupid things in front of the police, to the police, and you get what you pay for. At the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Um, but on the flip side of that coin, it's because of those people that I think part of the soup, part of the ingredients of the soup here that you're throwing is those people who cause the police to start to stereotype everybody. Because listen, I just dealt with someone who attacked me who looks exactly like you do, wearing the same clothes and everything, right? 2 days ago, and now here I am dealing with you. I'm probably going to approach it a little more aggressively because of I almost got a pokey poke the other day, right,
Yeah.
in my little ribs. So that's one of the problems. But you combine that with a combustible personality with a lot of these police.
Yeah.
Another incident I had where I was driving this truck on this highway, and there was an RCMP in front of me, right, and he was driving 10 under the speed limit. And now there's like 5 cars behind me, and we're driving down this highway. Again, he's driving like 10 under. So this little split lane opens up for about 2 kilometers, right?
Hmm.
So I speed up to I was going about 7 kilometers over the speed limit, right?
Okay.
And in Canada, you can go up to like usually 11, 12, 13 kilometers over the speed limit, and there's no fine for it. You're just going a touch over, right? I think it starts at like 20 over or something like that, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going like 7 kilometers over the speed limit, and just enough to squinch past him as he's driving 10 under, right? So it take almost the entire 2 kilometer stretch there to just kind of slowly pass him, and he's speeding up a little bit because he's trying to get me to speed, right?
Hmm.
Real
Okay.
asshole, right? So I end up passing him. He ends up coming in immediately. As soon as the lane changes, cherries come on and he pulls me over
Mm.
like that, right? So I'm like, sure. So I pull over, and this guy, he must have been about 5'5",
Uh-oh,
right?
small man complex.
Exactly, little
Oh
man
no.
complex.
Oh no.
Here I am, 6 foot, 275, professional wrestler, right?
Yeah.
So comes up to the truck, and he's like, he starts arguing with me. But he's like, how fast you were? He's like, why did you need to pass me? I said, because you were driving under the speed limit, right? And he's like, well, keeping everybody safe. I'm like, that's fine for you, right? But you're
Yeah.
going under the speed limit. He's like, so you felt the need to go faster than the speed limit? I said, I was going 7 kilometers over the speed limit. That's like 4 miles an hour over the speed limit in the States, right? That's how
Yeah.
insignificant it was, right?
Yeah.
So he's arguing with me back and forth, and I said, look, I said, clearly you got little man complex going on here, right? I
You
said, tell
actually
you what.
said
Oh yeah,
that?
because I didn't do anything wrong, right? I said,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, buddy. I said, give me the ticket, and I'll see you in court for 7 kilometers an hour over the speed limit. And he starts arguing with me. I said, you're not going to give me a ticket because there's no ticket in existence. There's no fine set for going 7 kilometers over the speed limit. It starts at 20 kilometers over. It's like $50 or
Yeah.
something like that, right? And I was like, there is no ticket to give. You're just being an asshole, right? And he argued with me some more, and he said he kept saying, "So just stick to the speed limit. Just stick to the speed limit." I said, "Yeah, sure, buddy. Right? See you later," kind of thing. And because he didn't have anything, he didn't like I wasn't doing anything wrong. He probably had a bad day. He had a little man complex. He was antagonizing drivers by going 10 kilometers under the speed limit. For me, you're antagonizing the traffic behind you. You want someone to pass you so you can pull them over. That's what you're doing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you could tell by his attitude when he walked up too that he had every intention. So that's what I mean by a combustible element with, and I get it. The 3 stories I've told, they pale in comparison to some of the abuse that happens in the States and stuff like that, right? I get it totally, but I'm using them as examples of why a lot of these personalities should have been screened more through psychological evaluations and said this person has a can doesn't have the personality to be able to have authority over people without abusing it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because most people don't. I mean, shit, I'm probably one of those people. That's why I'm not a cop. I'd probably be an asshole. Eventually, I might
Yeah.
start with the best of intentions, right? But eventually, I'm probably going to be a dick just like the rest of them. So I'm not doing it, right?
Right. I mean, you get talked back to enough times, you eventually would just be ready to go off. Like, it's funny you bring up the different traffic stories. Like my wife, I remember at one point here in the US, she got a ticket and it was literally 3 miles over the speed limit. Like that's like a fart in the wind. It's like, what? Like, what do you mean 3 miles over the speed limit? Like, what the hell kind of ticket is this? And she said, I couldn't believe he pulled me. I'm sure she probably chewed him out. And he said, you know what? That's it. I'm writing you a ticket.
She pushed a little too far and got it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen, I don't know if you've seen this. There was a really funny skit that Chris Rock did this years ago. And it was basically around the idea of black people getting profiled and getting pulled over by the cops for no reason, right? And in the US, I mean that happens all the time where it's like, "Hey, you're black. We're pulling you over." And even my former cop boss was like, if you're going to drive like the hoopty or whatever, like, yeah, I'm pulling your ass over. But at the same time, if you drove like a run of the mill, like gray Honda Accord, he's like, no one gives a shit. You can just keep on going. Nobody cares, you know? But anyway, so going back to the Chris Rock thing, it was a really funny skit. And it was how to avoid being pulled over while black, and it goes through like multiple scenarios. Like one of them was like, get a white friend, and he's like in the car with him. He's like, yeah, I'm driving with him. They're like, oh, it's okay, and it's one of them was like, don't drive with a mad woman. And she's like, he got weed. And the cops are like, what? And it shows them like clubbing him, beating the shit out of him.
I think I saw Cat Williams do that too. He was talking about get you some white friends. He's like, if you get pulled over and you're in jail, it could be 2 o'clock in the morning. You call them, they'll be down there at the police station in their pajamas. What the fuck did he do?
Yeah,
You get them out. So
but
funny.
in seriousness though, I do think that there's certain like police departments as well as maybe groups of police that are kind of like a-holes, and then there's others that aren't, and maybe there's some that are, but I think there are some good ones sprinkled amongst the bad ones. And so, like, to give you an example of this, so like the town that I grew up in, the police were just assholes just all the time, right? They didn't listen to anybody on anything. They know everything. You're wrong. They don't, like you said, they don't let you talk. they're what'd you say? What? They're just like ready to like rip you out of the vehicle and take you to jail. And on the flip side of that, I had this really unique job in college. So in college, I had a roommate who got a job as a valet at a hospital, right? And I thought, hey, that sounds fun. I'm like, I could be a valet at the hospital. And so I end up getting this job. And so at the hospital, there's multiple different areas where they have valet, right? So one is like at the front of the cancer wing, one's like at the main entrance. And then they had another one at the ER. And the ER was like really entertaining, right? So I was like, shit, I'm like, this sounds cool. I'm like, I'm going to try and get that one. And so what was interesting was at the hospital, the ambulances come in this loop, right? And they had this little room right there. And I would sit in the room. There would be the one guy from hospital security, which they're kind of usually like former military aspirations of being a cop. They're kind of at this stepping stone job of hospital security. And then there would be a off-duty police officer there with us. And so it would be like the three of us in there just like hanging out and shooting the shit. And it was really, really interesting. Like I really got to know a lot of these guys pretty well and came to respect a lot of them. And the like the hospital security, they would get calls like in the US, they refer to it as being Baker acted, which basically means somebody's here on drugs and they could be harmful to themselves. So we need you to go strap them down, right? And so they'd be like, oh, we got another one. They'd be like all jazzed up. Yes, they open the cabinet, grab the straps, run off. And so like the police officers, I would hear some of their stories as well, just sitting there, and they would kind of give me like the backstory of things. And it was really interesting. And so where I'm going with this is one day I'm at valet, right? And the way that the loop went, our lot was kind of on the side of it. So I'm just parking a car and I'm kind of coming back and I see this Jeep come screaming around the corner, kind of going the wrong way, goes in through the one-way ambulance loop the wrong way, right? He's got like 15 police cars behind him, okay? Comes peeling in. I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, what's going on here? I'm like, all right, I gotta see this. This is interesting. And so some lady gets out of the passenger seat. She's like, clothes are half ripped off, purple, bloody, runs up, and I'm like, oh my God. And then all the cops like get out of their vehicles, right? And they all get their guns out. Get the fuck out of the car. And I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, this is about to get crazy here. Like, we're gonna have a shooting, And so anyway, so they're like, get out, and the guy won't get out of the car. And he must have just been like loaded on some kind of drugs or something, right? And so they eventually end up pulling the door open. I see the vehicle starts kind of rocking. They're trying to like pull him out of the vehicle. They can't get him out of the vehicle. And at one point, going back to cops being tuned up, he reached for one of their belts.
Oh no.
Oh no. Yeah, this is like what you do. You do not reach for the cop's belt under any circumstance, right? And so I see the cop just full on haymakers, right? Just blasting this guy in the car. And the car's still rocking. Like, I don't know if he had his seatbelt on or what, or who knows. But they're just blasting this guy. And eventually they end up ripping him out by his ankles out of the vehicle. Just like, this is like 4:30 on like a Thursday or something. Like this just randomly happens, right? So they rip him out by his ankles. And at the same time, there's one cop that pulls out a taser, fucking tasers him right there. Like the things fire out and stick in you, the pins. So he's tasering him. And then another cop's running up with the German Shepherd, and they realized like they couldn't let the dog go because he just took 10,000 volts over here, and apparently it would kill the dog if the dog went at him. so it was like pure insanity, man. And so eventually they smear the guy into the road, they handcuff him, they lift him up, and while they finally get him up, he's kind of like like laughing, and his face is blasted to eternity, and the cops are just like, ah, like ready to go, like, we got another piece of shit here, you know.
Uh,
It's insane.
I've been on the other side of it though, where I've benefited from crookedness in the past. I used to I used to work security at a government casino in Ontario for a few years,
Okay.
with a obviously and like you said, that was kind of like a stepping stone for a lot of people to get on with the OPP or the RCMP or whatever, right? The police basically, and so I was there for a few years. We were friends. I was friends with all the guards and stuff. And anyway, years later, I'm driving back through Ontario in my truck. I'm going like 30, 35 over the speed limit, right? I'm in a hurry. I can't remember why, but I was very guilty. Very guilty. Right?
I'm starting to
Like
see a
20,
pattern here with all these traffic problems.
yeah, it was like 20 miles an
It
hour or
wasn't
something.
my fault. It was them.
Yeah. And so I'm coming over this hill, and a cop comes over the other side. And I'm like, ah, shit, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure enough, Yui, he follows me for about 2 kilometers, riding my ass, and then turns his cherries on, right? Pulls me over, walks up, no BS. It's one of the guys I was working with at the casino,
Hmm.
right? And he's like, Rob, how's it going, man? Blah, blah, blah. We're just sitting there talking, we're joking around. I'm like, how's the wife? How's the kids? Blah, blah, blah. And yeah, and I'm like, and he's like, all right, man. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, so you want my driver's license? He's like, no, man. He's like, okay. He's like, we take care of each other. I'm like,
Mm.
okay, I'm not going to argue with you here. This is very wrong. I'm very guilty. You have me dead to rights. I'll take it.
Right.
So I have benefited. Another time I was working as the head of security for Walmart. I was a regional manager for loss prevention for Walmart's in my province, and I was I work all the time, and I went to the movies in the same mall as a Walmart. Right, I went to the movie theater with my wife at the time. We hadn't been out on a date in a long time. We were looking forward to it, so I'm in the movie theater, and I'm getting these phone calls from my office. Right, it's like 7 o'clock at night or whatever. So I finally answer. I'm like, what? And they're like, they arrested this guy, and the two people on shift, they were two girls, petite girls, right? And they've got like this 40-year-old guy, I guess, big compared to them, right? Average size dude, probably 6 foot, 215, something like that, right?
Okay.
And he's telling them, because the cops, when you arrest somebody in that situation, the cops take like 8 hours to show up to take the person off your hands, right?
Really?
Because they just have more important things to do,
Mm.
right? So, I mean, for a shoplifter that's already in custody, they're like, whatever. But the problem is, the longer somebody sits in your security office, the more anxious they get. The more time they have to sit there and think about the consequences of what they've done, they start getting froggy, right? So they call me and they're like, man, Rob, we've had this guy in here for half an hour. He said that, if the cops aren't here in 10 minutes, he's coming, he's leaving, whether, and if we try to stop him, he's coming through us or whatever. And he could if he wanted to, right? So there was a buddy of mine who worked with me, big dude, and I was walking. I told my wife, I'll be right back. I leave the theater because it's in the same mall, and I'm walking towards the Walmart. I see my buddy, and that works for me, right? And I'm like, I explained it as I'm walking, so he's like, okay. Like I said, big dude. I'm a big dude. He's like twice my size, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we walk into the security office, and he's sitting there, and my buddy says, so you're gonna get up and leave at 7 o'clock or whatever the case might be on the penny if the cops aren't here yet. And he didn't say nothing. He just kind of looked like, oh crap, right? My buddy walks up and just gently places his hand on the side of the guy's face, right on the side of his head, and just goes wham right into the drywall, right? His head goes into the drywall. The guy's half covered, his whole head's covered in drywall here. The cops show up. And the guy's like, look what they did to me. Look what they did to me. They put my head put that hole in the wall, right? The cop looks at us and he looks at the guy and he goes, you know what? I was here yesterday, and that hole was already in the wall. It's like, I don't know what you're saying, right? So because they know what we deal with too, right?
Yeah.
They, similar stuff. So they know that there must have been a reason the guy was being the way he was being. He was threatening women, so he kind of got what was coming to him, right? But again, it's just the fact that they just kind of let it slide. They shouldn't have, and we benefited from it, but we, people should not be handled that way. Um, after the guy put his head in the wall, I stood him up, turned him around, put his hands behind his back, put him in handcuffs, and sat him back down. And then I just said, I'm going to stand here in the doorway, right, until the cops come, and you go through me instead of go through them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, just the fact that the cops didn't. I mean, they at the very least they should have scalded us a little bit for doing that. But you know, I mean, I didn't do it. I didn't put my hand on the guy. But the other guy did. But it's just a fact that that's acceptable to them, right? And that's brutality. While the guy deserved it for being an asshole, it was excessive force at the same time that should not have been used, right? And that they were perfectly fine with.
Well,
It's
if it happened, but I'm not sure it happened.
no, it's just that wall, that hole was there.
That hole was already there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great story, but obviously it didn't happen.
He's got the evidence all over his head. Eh? There's just drywall. Oh boy.
Oh, that's funny. So my former boss, the cop, he would tell us stories of some of these guys that they would arrest. And he's like, oh man, he always had crazy stories, like the time he had lice, or the time he got crabs, or that he acquired something from whoever was in the back seat. He even had one about a lady that was in the back seat that was like, I gotta go to the bathroom, and she's like completely drunk, right? And he's like, we're almost there. And he said she put her legs up and just pissed all over the back of the car.
Oh my.
Yeah, and so you can kind of see how they get tuned up just dealing with shit like that. Like, again, it's for the most part, the normal people are not the ones that come across your radar as a cop. It's the everyday shitbags. And like, I don't know if you've heard about this, but like, I think in the US this is a thing. It probably is in Canada too, where you get some of these people that an environment where they've got no prospects, no money, nothing's going for them. And the easiest thing to do is to get arrested so they can go to jail. And when they're in jail, they got a roof, they got food, they got a bed, they got people to hang out with. And there's some of them that, they kind of refer to them as like repeat offenders, that it's like, this is just what they do. It's like, yeah, I could get out of jail, but I'll probably recommit a crime here so I can get back in jail.
Well, they do that here. They do that here in Manitoba, because the winters we get at least a couple of people who are unalived at bus stops. They try to sleep in bus shelters and stuff when it's like 45 below
Oh,
and
that's
stuff like
insane.
that.
Yeah.
They just they don't wake up again, right? It happens at least a few times a year here every winter. So a lot of them, that's what they do. They say, you know what, it's winter time, so I'm gonna go do something that's gonna get me 6 months in jail, and it's warm. Like you said, I got a bed, I got 3 square meals a day. I'll come back out in the summertime, right? So
Yeah.
it's strategic almost, and it's on the taxpayer's dollar. So they often say, well, there's not enough money to build enough shelters for homeless people and stuff like that, right? Well, we're spending that money anyway, sheltering them in prison, because they do it intentionally. A lot of them do it intentionally.
Right.
Like, winter's coming, right. I'm not sleeping outside in a bus stop at 40 below. I'd rather be in a structured environment, right, where no one's gonna bug them, right? They're just some homeless dude. They're not affiliated with anybody. They're not. So, I mean, it's short term, and that's where the tax money's going anyway. So why not just, build better shelters, bigger and better shelter houses and stuff, You know, I don't
Hey,
know.
what do you think about sometimes you have scenarios, I think, where you get cops where they're always working OT, right? Because they do OT at this place or that place, they get paid like time and a half or whatever they're making. And I think there's times where they do kind of like stand down and they're like, I'm not even touching this one, right? And again, going back to my freaking former boss, he was telling us that he did OT a couple times in Daytona, right? And Daytona has a line that or it's arrive on vacation, leave on probation. So like some of these people, it's like they showed up at Daytona at like spring break 97 and they never left because they just like went to jail and then they were kind of out and then they went back in and back and forth. But he was telling us at one point, he's like the worst assignment I ever did was he worked it was like in Daytona they have one of the events is bike week, right? Where all the bikers come in. Well, apparently they have like a rival event that's Black Bike Week. And he said he's like this lone like white cop in like a little convenience store or some shit because the owner's like, hey, like I need security this way. I need to make sure I'm not getting all my shit stolen, right? So he's in there and he says he's like it just gets like ransacked. He's like, there's like 50 people that come in at once. He's like, I can see him stealing shit left and right. He's like, what am I supposed to do here? Like,
Yeah,
how do I even do this? And then again, like if something does happen and it gets crazy, it's kind of like they're antagonizing it in a different way, right? Like, I can think of another example of this that's kind of common today in the US is and it really got popular in California in particular, was that they changed it so any theft of like under $1,000 like wasn't a felony, and so you get all these people that they show up at a CVS and there's like 35 of them, they have like suitcases and they're just stealing all the shit because no one can stop them, and the employees are kind of caught in the middle, and the cops either they're going after them full force or they're just like, I'm not touching this one. You know what I mean? And again, you have that antagonistic aspect of it that it's like if I was a cop and I got called out, like, if they were like, hey, all units to the Apple store, we've got it, it's getting ransacked by 50 assholes, you got to take the call. And then
yeah,
you get there, like, what are you supposed to do? I'm sure you're probably looking at it like, all right, I'm just going to pick one and like just beat the crap out of this guy,
yeah, yeah. Pick one from the herd and
Yeah, pick
pick
one
a weak
off.
one off.
We'll make an example out of that guy.
Yeah. There was, I ran security in bars for over 2 decades,
Yeah,
and I was running this one bar, uh, and it was a known police bar. It's where all the cops went off duty to, have a good time and let loose because we had a good relationship with them. Right when something happened that required the police, they always looked the other way or whatever the case may be. They never gave us a hard time as security there, right?
yeah,
And kind of in response to that, we would always make sure that they're okay in the bar. They're taken care of. They get to skip the line. They don't get it. They don't. The bouncers don't go too far with them and stuff like that, right?
okay,
Because they come in and they're basically they feel safe there when they're off duty, right?
yeah.
And this one night, the bar's clearing out and it's almost empty, and there's this guy standing over at coat check, and he's just screaming at these two petite girls in coat check. And I walk over and I'm like, nice and calm, like I'm talking to you right now. I'm like, hey. I'm like, what's going on? And he starts screaming about his jacket. He's like, they won't give him his jacket. And I look at him. I said, dude, you're wearing your jacket. He's literally wearing his jacket, right? I'm like, you're screaming at these girls.
Yeah,
You're up here. There's nowhere to go from here except physical violence. Are you prepared to jump over the counter and start being physically violent with them? What are you doing? Right? You've brought it to a level, there's nowhere else to go except violence, right?
yeah, yeah.
So you need to come down a little bit here. And he starts screaming at me, and he's like, something like, "I'll kick your ass," or blah blah blah. And the girls start laughing, right? And he's obviously now he's offended, and they're like, "You don't bite off more than you can chew, buddy," kind of thing, right? And sure enough, he pushes me, so I just grab him. I bounced him. I got a little bit frustrated. I'm bouncing him off every wall, and I could tell this guy is just booger sugared out, right?
Right.
And I'm bouncing him off the walls. I put him on the ground. I put my knee in his back. I've got his hands, and he's on the ground. He's foaming at the mouth. He's so mad,
Whoa.
and he can't feel anything that I'm doing to him, right? I'm not striking him, but when I'm bouncing him around, so if I throw him over, he's just foaming. He's so mad. There's literally foam coming out of his mouth. And this other bouncer comes over, a buddy of mine, black dude, and he just leans on it. I'm the only one with my hands on this guy. Again, he's down on his chest, right, and face down, and he's screaming. And my buddy's like, "Dude, just calm down, and he'll let you go." And he's all, "You black," And I'm like, "Dude, he's not even touching you." Right? Like
Wrong
he's trying
words to say.
So I'm like, you know what? He's not going to stop, right?
Yeah.
So I turn him around, I grab him by his collars, and we're right at the door. So I just pick him up and I just launch him backwards, and he goes flying, hits the back of his head on the concrete, whatever, right? And I just close the doors. Bars close anyway. See you later, buddy.
Yeah.
And I show up the following weekend for my shift. It's like 6:30 p.m., 7 p.m., and these two uniform cops are there, and they want to talk to me. So we sit down at the table. And I'm like, they asked me about it. They're like, so turns out he was a cop. He's a
Really?
cop. Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
So they asked me about it, and I told them what happened. And I thought I was like, oh great, here we go. Right. We're gonna cause a lot of friction between us and the police now because I beat up one of them. Right. And they both start howling. Right. And I'm like, so now they're like, we're never gonna let him hear the end of this, right? Because they were pissed off at him because he started a problem in a bar that's a police bar. It's where they like to go, and they don't want problems between security and them. It's a good environment. It's a good relationship. So they're like, we're gonna bug him about this forever. That he got beat up, by security. But the fact that he was in there, freaking out, borderline getting violent with two little women,
Yeah.
booger sugared out of his tree to the point where he's foaming at the mouth, didn't feel a thing I was doing to him, right? That's how far gone he was. That's the kind of guy that should not have a badge.
Yeah. Great point. Excellent.
What is that personality doing with a badge?
Well, he applied. There was an
Yeah.
opening, right?
Yeah. But how do you pass the psych with something like that? Like, but that goes back to my kind of thesis that I think that there's a demand for police officers and not as much of a supply. So they kind of lower the bar in terms of, qualifying. It
Yeah.
seems like.
Well, I think it's fair to say that not every police officer has good judgment, right? And that's a perfect example of it. Like, not only are you a cop, but then you're making a terrible decision to get loaded, then an even worse decision to do it at the cop bar,
Yeah.
and then you get kicked out of it, so it's like a domino effect of terrible decisions,
Yeah. I never saw him again. He never came back. I guess he just, didn't feel he was welcome anymore or whatever. But the police, they like to have that relationship. Because they need a place where they can go and unwind too, that they can feel safe, when they're off duty. And that guy put that in jeopardy by behaving that way, right? So I was surprised at their response. They just started howling. They're like, he deserved it, right? And
He probably did. He probably did.
He 100% deserved more.
Right. So
I didn't even strike him.
my former boss, he would tell us that at the police station, like, it was common that, like, they all kind of like dated like each other between the women officers and the male officers. Like Like he was like, yeah, like it was very common that like first you were dating this person, then you broke up with them and started dating that one. And it's like high school for cops, and I think in that respect too, you get these like crazy tuned up people, and then all of a sudden you have this weird love triangle that like goes to hell. Like every once in a while you'll hear like just some crazy story about like yeah, there was a double murder and it's three cops, and so was, it's like an office quarrel, but they're all police, and you would think to yourself like, okay, that's probably the last place you want to date people, but
Yeah.
that's the first place they start dating people, because that's who's in front of them, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's who's around you on a regular basis.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. It's well. They also say that, I mean, the domestic violence uh, statistics are extremely high in police households,
yeah, yeah,
right? And I think that leads back to, again, it's not a justification by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that leads back to what they see, what they deal with, and it just mentally and emotionally changes them into someone that shouldn't be in a family environment, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah, I,
like,
I know. So I had a really good friend that he always kind of had an aspiration of being a cop, right? And he was a plumber, right? And he was like, like I'm doing great. He had his own business. I mean, he had like $100,000 Jeep. I mean, he was doing very well on his own, right? He's like, I really want to be a cop. And I was like, you sure you want to do this? Kind of questioning him, right? And he was telling me, he's like, yeah, like I've always wanted to do it, and I think I want to try it, before it's too late and this and that. He's like, but I do have a friend who's a cop, and he's told me some of his stories. I was like, really? Like, what does he tell you? And he was like, well, basically, like the cops are kind of like only sporadically on the good in the good parts of town, right? Really, where
yeah,
they live the most is the bad parts of town, and it's like, oh yeah, the other day, he got his finger broken, and then somebody bit him, and then he had to get a rabies shot, and it's like you hear these stories and you're just like, what? Even my former boss, he told us a story where he said the worst fight he ever got in was with a college kid, and he said they started wrestling around, and somehow they were on the ground, and he said the kid took a brick and hit him in the ear with it, and he said, like, my balance has never been the same since after getting hit in the ear with a brick. And again, you hear that and it's like, no wonder they're just ready to go, because this guy over here hit him in the head with a brick. Like you and I would never do that in a million years.
no,
But here's
I wouldn't
somebody
even think
that did.
about it.
Yeah, yeah, here's somebody that did. And he's going to have permanent damage forever, with his balance, because he got hit in the head with a brick, you know?
Yeah, it's going to throw your equilibrium off forever, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's, and you got the extreme cases as well. I mean, you got your what's his name, Floyd.
Oh yeah, George Floyd. Well, that's definitely on the cop on that one. I felt, what, in the story of George Floyd, obviously this is a charged issue, right? Well, Floyd supposedly used a fake $20 bill, and then he decides to arrest him, and the cop that killed him put his knee on his neck for like, 10, 20 minutes, whatever the crazy thing was. So the other three officers that they all lost their careers, they all went to jail.
Mhm.
Like a couple of them were like brand new, like that. It was like training day, like they were like with a crooked Denzel, and Denzel decides to kill this guy, and
You
now,
mother.
yeah, and now by the way, you're going to jail also, and now you're no longer a cop. Like
Yeah,
holy cow! And it's because you didn't do anything. But again, like what are they? I get it that guy's not doing the right thing, but in the moment, like, what are they supposed to do? Like, arrest the cop arresting the guy? Like,
yeah,
what?
arrest. Yeah, like it's their first day on the job, right? Like, do you go
That's
into,
a superior.
yeah, if you, and it's not an excuse or a cop out, but it is true. I mean, if you go into your new job, it's your first day, working in a kitchen and the guy's cooking the food wrong, he's sending out raw meat. You don't know what the hell you're doing, so you're not going to say, "Hey, buddy, what are you doing?" He's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just no one realistically, does that on their first day at work,
Right.
right?
Right.
You're there trying to be a sponge. You're just, trying to get through the first day, right?
But
So,
truthfully though, I think that's kind of how these things happen. Is there's like let's say a group of cops, and there'll be like one bad actor, and the one bad actor doesn't have good judgment, does something way off, and everybody else is just kind of there, and they almost get like shell shocked, like what do we do, and they just don't know what to do, kind of like the ice shootings that happened in Minnesota, same deal, right? Where it's
mhm.
like, hey, this guy's got a camera, okay, let's tackle him and beat the crap out of him and pepper spray him, and then some guy's like, hey, I'm going to execute him now with my gun. All right, like that was that that you just took this like way too far,
Yeah,
it went from like 1 to 10 in like 10 seconds.
yeah, absolutely. And it's that thin blue line as well. They talk about the blue line or whatever, where they say they just cover for each other no matter what, because you gotta. I understand the whole you gotta watch out for each other, but not when one of your fellow police officers is breaking the law, right? Do you have to protect each other and be there for each other? Yeah. But if somebody who's supposed to be on your side or on your team is doing stuff shouldn't be doing, are they on your team? Right?
Yeah. Yeah, but again, if you're a lone actor and turning them in, then you could have a lot of fallout coming to you as being the one turning them in. Like you see that sometimes with like these shows in like Baltimore or like Philadelphia, where it's like, yeah, not everybody in the department is like on the up and up. Like there's quite a few of them that they've been doing this so long, they hate everybody, they hate you. Yeah, they're taking money because the world owes them, and now you're going to turn them in. Like
Yeah.
that's like a the keg getting ready to blow.
Yeah, it's a lose lose in my opinion. Well, I mean, we're just about out of time, brother. What are your thoughts summing up the whole police brutality topic?
That's a loaded topic. I think like what we touched on earlier, usually in every form there's some sort of an antagonist. I can see how the cops are just sort of jaded because of the daily shit they have to put up with constantly. Like I said in that last example, I can see where you don't want to be the one outlier, like, hey guys, this isn't right. And then all of a sudden they're clubbing you. So, I mean, I can kind of see like how the whole thing like just unravels and kind of goes to shit. And then likewise, I mean, like you said, you get some of these cops that are totally unqualified that probably should have never been there to begin with, but they are.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you do? Because the department needs people. I mean, it's a very complicated issue. I don't know if there's any like right way or right path or right schematic. It just kind of seems like every situation is case by case.
Well, for me, the way I look at it is really quite simple. At the end of the day, there's a lot, like you said, it's a loaded situation. There's a lot of nuance to it. However, having a police force, having the existence of police in our society is the only thing that makes our society what it is. At the end of the day, I
Rules,
don't care.
laws. Yep.
Yes, I don't care how nice of a person people think that they are. If you know that you can do something to another without consequences, it's in our nature to do it. Greed, selfishness, and self preservation will persevere if there's no fear of consequences of your actions at the end of the day. So while there are a lot of issues when it comes to policing, they're the only thing holding our society together is the enforcement of the law, in my opinion.
I think that's spot on. You've seen a lot lately about like the message of defund the police. I,
Yeah.
I, I disagree with that 100%. Like that's absolutely insane. And then, like, what's kind of ironic where I live is the police chief is black, and often, at least like once a year, there'll be a video that comes out, and they'll be like, "Yeah, the racist cops are beating people up or this or that," and then the police chief comes out and goes, "No, you got it all wrong. Like, here's what actually happened. Let me give you the real facts." And you can tell he's just like sick and tired of talking about it, but he has to do it. And it's like, yeah, this isn't a racial thing. This is a you broke the law thing, you
Yeah,
know?
but we don't like accountability in our society today, though. So we
Yeah.
like excuses and cop outs. Somebody else's fault.
Yeah. It's always someone else's fault, right? And then all of a sudden you get, your ass beat by the cops.
Yeah. I'm innocent.
I didn't do anything. Sure. Okay. You
Yeah,
know,
this just happened. They're
right.
just like, that guy.
Yeah. He's got a ladder on the roof, right?
Yeah, get him. He's got a ladder. Oh man. Well, guys, we will be back tomorrow with another episode of the Paradigm Shift. Hopefully, you guys will be here for that. Thank you, as always, for supporting us, whether you are watching us on YouTube or listening on Spotify, Apple, or any other podcast location. Make sure you give us a 5-star review, like, and subscribe on YouTube. And we will see you guys tomorrow. God bless.
Shift out.